Alright everyone, it's time for your morning funnies. Just think of me as the funny papers. You know, you get some sarcastic humor, but you also get hilarious stories like this. This is basically LARPing. And so the Abenaki chief in Vermont, of the, I can't pronounce it, tribe, whatever. To tell the truth, the Abenaki aren't really a thing anymore. My ancestor, which presumably I'm 1/16th, possibly even 1/8 Abenaki, it depends on who you ask. It's not proven. It's much more likely than Elizabeth Warren, who is, you know, as purely Anglo-Saxon as you could literally possibly get. Her high cheekbones probably come from Scandinavia or something. The Abenaki chief, Don Stevens, very Mesoamerican name, by the way, wants an Indigenous Peoples Day to be celebrated nationwide. Now, this is a counterfoil to Columbus Day. Now, what do we know about Columbus? He never set foot in what's now the United States. Unless you technically count Puerto Rico. Pretty sure he did set foot on Puerto Rico. He bumbled around South America and the Caribbean. He never even made it to Florida. Never knew apparently that it existed. I don't celebrate Columbus Day because Christopher Columbus is, you know, foreign, had nothing to do with the United States in the civic sense, had nothing to do with discovering what became our country. And really there were other explorers like Balboa or Amerigo Vespucci that were at the end of the day more successful. That being said, replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day is a political hack job. Because the idea is basically celebrating, well, we're celebrating the indigenous people of this continent. You notice that they don't use the term native. They don't say Native Peoples Day. Why? I'm native to the United States. My family goes back to the early 1600s in the North American continent. It's going to be difficult to find many people who have a longer ancestry in the country. That being said, I'm native there. I can't be native anywhere else. I'm not indigenous to Europe. I wasn't born on this continent that I happen to be in at the moment. Certainly not in the Netherlands. Yeah, my family lineage largely goes to England and Scotland. I've also got German and Slovak ancestry, and that's on the proven side. So where am I native to? If you're talking about like the ethno-nationalist thing, broadly European, that's not an ethnicity. No, I consider myself to be an American. And I always will be. I'm indigenous to the continent. The fact that somebody else's ancestors came across a glacier instead of sailing later on in ships does not negate the importance of the latter or their indigenous technical nature. The Norse. Are we going to say that people from Sweden and Finland are indigenous because the Norse settled off of Newfoundland like 1,000 years ago, which they provably did? And intermingled, by the way, with the Eskimos there. Absolutely. The genetic studies appear to be at this point fairly clear. There was interbreeding going on, which makes sense. You had this group of rugged dudes with all this, what at the time was reasonably advanced technology, setting up a longhouse there on the coast of Newfoundland, and it appears that they intermingled. There was one burial remain where you had a skull that was clearly European, another that was clearly Inuit, and then what appeared to be their offspring, which appeared to be possibly interbred between the two. It's clear what happened. And they were probably all male. Hopefully there was no pillaging going on at the time. Although they were Vikings, so, you know, sue them. Moral standards were different back then. I believe that if you look at the burial cairns in New England and elsewhere, primarily in New England, I believe you're seeing the influence of Irish explorers. The old Irish exploration sagas are fairly clear. These people went out. The Norse sagas are highly symbolic, but if you look at what they say, you can overlap it with the now proven idea that the Norse penetrated parts of North America. Why should the Irish be any different? What, they were so much more mystical? So much more mythological? No, they were talking out of their ass. They never actually explored anything. Yeah, they're just talking about like maybe Iceland or Denmark. No, I don't think it was Denmark and Iceland that they're talking about. Pretty sure it was North America. Yeah, they left behind some remnants. You're not going to find much else. The problem is that if they were buried in relation to their remnant, that is that these several dozen burial cairns around the northeast region, if they were buried there, you're never going to find the remains because the Native Americans claim them as their own without any evidence and won't let you dig up any test sites, which is another thing that the Abenaki are doing to stand in the way of archaeology. Again, I say this as someone who has presumable Native heritage. Native. I consider 100% of my heritage native. I was born in New Hampshire. I was born in the United States. Where else am I native to? That's why they use the term indigenous, to be like, well, it's like the Aborigines. Okay. The fact that they came into a continent 20,000 years ago or whatever, as opposed to several hundred years ago, does not negate the importance of the latter. Unless you're trying to tell me that the importance of here, in the European sense, the broadly European population is more important than recent immigrants. Now, if I were to make that argument, I'd be considered a Nazi, now wouldn't I? In fact, in some nations, I'd be making an illegal statement. It would be considered very politically incorrect. Oh my God, you're a nativist, you're a Nazi. Ethno-nationalism, oh my God, quick, we gotta ban this individual. Why then is it okay for other groups of people to claim that about other continents? Especially a continent that until relatively recently in the human timeline wasn't even populated by humans, completely empty. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We're now thinking it's a possibility that some Egyptian boat may have sailed into South America at some time. Didn't they have like cocaine mummies down there or something? Over in Egypt, and they're saying, well, how did this get here? I think that Europeans probably introduced that in the Victorian era. Cocaine, very popular. They spilled Coca-Cola on the mummy, and it was before like the 1930s when they took the cocaine out of it, maybe, or something like that. Now, I mean, I'm talking out of my ass when I talk about that, but the human timeline is complex and convoluted. The idea of an Indigenous Peoples Day makes no sense. Nobody is technically indigenous to anywhere other than the place of their birth. The idea is how many hundreds or thousands of years has to elapse before a tribe or an ethnic clad of people is indigenous to an area. Well, they've been displacing each other all the fucking goddamn time for all of human existence. These people wiped each other out during the Copper Age, let alone in modernity. So it doesn't make any sense to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, and I oppose it. Replace Columbus Day with something civically American if you want to replace it at all. If you don't want to celebrate the loser explorer that got sent back to Europe by his own people in chains because he was such an inept and abusive moron, if you don't want to celebrate what essentially was a complete goddamn failure who ignored an entire continent that was literally only a few hundred miles away at some points, if you want to ignore a person that was searching for a passage to Asia and was literally told by the native peoples of Panama at the time, hey, yeah, if you do one day's hike across these hills, you're in a different ocean. But he ignored them, and he went back out to his islands to go and enslave more people. Go ahead and stop celebrating the moron. He has nothing to do with the United States. He never even set foot on U.S. soil. But replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm indigenous, or where am I indigenous to? A nation I've never set foot on? I've never been in the United Kingdom. I've never set foot in jolly old England. If I went there, I'd probably get arrested for not having a license for free speech or something. Oi, mate, you got a license for that opinion? I'd probably get arrested for my YouTube videos in that cuck country. Probably not even allowed to go. I'd probably banned. If I tried to disembark, I'd probably get the Gestapo would have to detain me and send me back here to a country that maybe is more permissive of people with unpopular opinions. Where am I indigenous to? Where am I supposedly native to these people? And then you Don Stevens, Abenaki chief. Oh my God, what a fucking farce. Just a goddamn LARPer. Go ahead and keep LARPing. That you have something in common with people 500-600 years ago. Dude, the Abenaki were wiped out by eugenics anyway. The University of Vermont, the most liberal institution I can think of, was sterilizing Native Americans who came in there up until the mid-1970s. Yeah, well, by the way, very progressive, tolerant academic individuals in that particular edifice. They wear it as sort of a badge of shame. For anthropology students, it's sort of like, it's almost like a cultish sort of thing, where if you're in anthropology or parts of the English department, you'll be reminded about this constantly. Well, people suffered here, and there was sterilization. We must always keep in mind those sterilized Native American individuals. My ancestors thankfully weren't sterilized, otherwise I wouldn't be here. Maybe I would have incarnated, I'd be from India or something like that instead. That'd be pretty cool. Being from India must be pretty cool. As long as you're not in the lowest class, like what's it called, the mudras or something like that, it could be a little bit of a problem. That's about all. Peace out.